in Tel Aviv in Israel up until a year ago, and prior to that I was living in Singapore, and now back in the UK. It's just over a year, and my journey into the wild woman living in Singapore. So before I moved to Singapore, I was living in London, working as a teacher in a high school, in a secondary school. And the whole time, I was young, I was 22, and the whole time I had this feeling of being trapped. I had this feeling of, like, where can I escape to next? Where can I go to next? And I'm curious to know if that is something that you've ever experienced, if that's something that you've ever connected with, this feeling of like, where do I get to go to next? Why do I feel so trapped in the place that I'm in? And I didn't quite understand why I felt so trapped, but I felt it for quite some time. I never felt like I fully fitted in. I never felt like I fully fitted in any place that I was. And at the time, I was going through a very difficult personal situation in a relationship. I had a really bad car accident. I was going through a lot of kind of personal trauma, and I just felt the need to escape, felt the need to be free, felt the need to get out of this linear pattern that I'd found myself in of, you know, finishing school, going to university, getting my teaching degree, going into a career. I was already working my way up the career ladder at a very young age. All of it just felt very, very trapping for me, very, very structured, like I needed to break free. And so whilst I was in Singapore, I started to experience a similar feeling. And I came to understand that this feeling was the wounded masculine energy that promotes this linear structure in which we live, that promotes a lack of ability and a lack of space and a lack of time for really just being and honoring our feminine self. A space where competition is the goal, where success is the goal, where money is the goal, where consumerism and consuming and having things and just acquiring more and more things and acquiring more like upgrades on things was continually the rhetoric that was played out whilst I was living there. And once again, I found myself kind of misaligned with this, but also getting very trapped into it. Like, you know, starting to hear the things like, why am I not doing better? Why am I not upgrading to this? How comes I don't do that? How comes they're doing that and I'm not doing that? And I started to understand that once again, I was living in this very kind of rigid, strict, organized culture that had me following a track. And I wasn't comfortable with it because it didn't leave me space to play. It didn't leave me space to live myself. There was just so many people and so much noise and so much kind of emphasis on being the next best thing. They even have a phrase for it in Singapore, 𝐸𝐴𝐻. It means one step ahead or getting better at, or like continually, essentially like being on the treadmill to keep going. And it was only when I started to kind of explore the other parts of Southeast Asia and connecting with my spirituality through attending ceremonies and temple ceremonies and kind of connecting in with the cultures that were present in the other parts of Southeast Asia, that I understood that this was not the way I wanted to live my life. And I spent 5 years in Singapore kind of exploring that, understanding what this wounded masculine energy was essentially doing to my soul. And perhaps you can resonate with some of these things. It was depleting me. I was overdoing, overworking, overgiving. I had a huge fear that I wasn't enough. I had a fear of kind of like I was failing. I wasn't doing enough for myself or for society. And so I was continually like volunteering and doing community service all the time. I would work Monday to Friday, and then I would also work on Saturday, and then I'd go and volunteer on Sunday. And I really didn't give myself the opportunity there to rest and experience pleasure and experience any kind of sense of fun or joy or connect in with the things that I really loved, because I had this sense that I had to keep going, otherwise I would be a failure. And this was, you know, partially also emphasized by the society in which I was living. So I'd love to know if you resonate with this. And if you're watching this on replay, you can just hashtag it and drop me some comments. And so I moved to Israel. And when I moved to Tel Aviv, at the very beginning, I loved the more kind of spontaneous culture. I loved more of the vibe. I loved this kind of idea that it was, that people last minute, that you could, that things were much more negotiable. It was far less rigid, far less structured, much more open, much more flowing. After some time, I started to notice once again that this wounded masculine energy was starting to up for me. Again, I started being met with like a defense all the time, or attack all the time. And in turn, I started to defend and I started to attack. This energy of like rushing around, always trying to be, again, like falling into this kind of competition sphere of, how comes my friends are doing this and I'm not there yet? Or people would say to me, how comes you've got all of this and I'm not there yet? And there just seemed to be this, again, this sense of like trying to reach a place, a destination, without really fully enjoying the journey. And once again, I found myself in the position of overgiving, overdoing, volunteering, doing community service all the time. And once again, I left very little time for pleasure or play. And I was like, okay, so it's not the countries. It doesn't matter where I am, the UK, Singapore, Israel, I'm experiencing the same thing time and time and again. So I started to kind of like ask myself, like, what is this? Why am I feeling this? Why do I feel so trapped in my own sense of control? Like, why am I needing to micromanage every aspect of my life? And so I started to unravel. And it came after sort of, burnout number 5. I really realized that this had to change, this had to stop. And I started to connect in with other aspects of myself. I started to connect in with my feminine. I started attending women's circles. I started attending cacao ceremonies. I started attending breathwork sessions, spiritual coaching, channeling, meditation, more time for myself. I purposefully made more time for rest. I eased up my timetable. And whilst that was wonderful, and whilst that was starting to open me up spiritually, what happened was that I went so far into my feminine that I shunned all responsibility of my masculine, because my wounded masculine was what I was living in, but I just thought that was the entire masculine part of myself. And so I completely shunned it. I devoided myself of all responsibility and all connection to the masculine. And I went way into my feminine on the left. So much so that it was like I was swimming out at sea without a paddle. So much so that I literally couldn't get myself into action. So much so that I literally could not get myself back into a space of connection. I couldn't get myself back to a space of aligned action. I was leaning so far back that I could not stand back up. And this was scary. This was just as scary as being in my wounded masculine. Because from this place, I had no anchor. I had nothing to hold me down. I had nothing to support me so that I could connect back in with the earth and put my mission and my vision and my purpose into action. And this is where the awakening feminine journey started for me. Connecting pleasure portals, connecting back to my body, using embodiment practice, the breathwork sessions, ecstatic dance, the women's circles, connecting in with my pack, connecting in with my tribe. And this is where I really started to awaken the wild woman. So who is the wild woman? The wild woman is your primal essence. She is your primal essence, that she lives very deep down in your sacral chakra, where you have all of your sexual energy and your sensual energy. And she is that essence that really dictates inside of you. The wild woman loves to be liberated. The wild woman lives in her liberation. She runs with the wolves, so she follows her instincts and she navigates her way through the forest, following all of her own instincts and listening very closely to the rhythm of her own drum. She does not listen to other people's expectations of who she should be, or where she gets to go, or how she should behave, or how she should speak, or how she should act. The wild woman is fully in tune with her own body, with her own elements. And part of this embodiment is being able to really express her voice and express her truth. What do I mean by express her truth? That means that she's able to say what she wants to say without worrying about what she's saying triggering somebody else. And she knows that if she does trigger somebody else, it's okay, because it's something in them that needs to be healed, rather than her responsibility to tread softly, upset them. The wild woman is not a people pleaser. She doesn't say things to please other people. She says things because that's her truth. She says things because that's the opinion she has. And she's absolutely confident that when she says it, even if it does trigger somebody else, that it's okay to do that, because she's standing within her own sovereignty. The wild woman is connected in with her body. She explores her body. She loves her body. She touches every part of her body. And she's not afraid to explore the aspects of her body that perhaps or disowned in the past. The parts of her body cause insecurity or cause kind of shame. You know, connecting in with her feminine self and her feminine form. And we all as women carry that shame. We carry that shame from all the sexual dishonoring that we've ever experienced, not only on this earth plane in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes too. And, you know, for centuries and centuries, women have been silent. They've been oppressed. They've been bound in these chains. We've got, you know, the witch hunts. Women didn't get the vote until the early 1900s. Women are still not being fully seen and heard. We still have gender pay gaps. We still have an unequal society in which women are the lesser sex. And so the wild woman is here to really show you that you get to live in your own liberation, that you get to dictate the choices that feel right for you within your life without adhering to other people's expectations or other people's conditions of who you think that you should be. And the wild woman is really freeing you from the good girl conditioning in which you find yourself living. And this good girl conditioning is something, you know, that we all grow up with, that we had to shrink to fit in, that we had to dim to fit in, that we allowed people to cross our boundaries in order to experience their love and their validation. And when you shrink away and you constrict who you are, that is when other people can kind of cross over your boundaries, because you are then not strong enough to say, no, this is a sacred no for me, or this is a sacred yes, a heaven yes for me. And so when that happens and people cross your boundaries, you feel taken advantage of. And when you feel taken advantage of, you constrict even more. You keep yourself even smaller. Or in the good girl, you overachieve. You super exceed expectations, because that is the only way that you know, have experienced receiving love and validation. So the wild is really a divine feminine archetype that is here to liberate you for your pleasure, for your absolute connection to source, for your connection to your sovereignty, to your sensuality, to your sexuality, to being able to have your voice be seen and heard and witnessed. And we're going to be exploring this a lot deeper in the upcoming 3-day immersion I'm holding in my Facebook group, the Divine School of Feminine Awakening. It starts next week on May 17th to 19th. It's called The Wild Woman Waits. It's a 3-day immersion. And this immersion is really for you if you are someone that you are desiring to be more feminine in your essence. If you found yourself resonating with this part of the story that I told at the beginning, where I was, you know, overly, where I was overgiving, where I was resentful for that overgiving, where I was falling into a place of complete burnout, depletion, and I was fearing failure. And so I had to grip on so tightly. I had no trust, no surrender. I had to be more feminine, and you want to feel more liberated to express your voice and to really have your opinions heard and to be valued in that and to be seen and heard and witnessed. And you want to understand more about who this wild woman is and how you can start to call her back in your life, then this is the immersion for you. Because through this immersion, we're going to make you feel more alive and connected to your own energy, connecting to other women in a safe space, finding your pack, finding your tribe, and a deeper connection to your intuition and inner knowing. So if this is something that's landing in your heart, I warmly invite you to come and join the immersion. It starts next week, May 17th to 19th. It's 3 days. You just need to click on the link that I've put into this. All of the information, and the immersion will take place within the Facebook group, the Divine School of Feminine Awakening, where you are welcome to come and join that now and join me there, where I give more talks about feminine awakening. We have a division school each week, lots of different posts going. We have card readings in there. It's a beautiful space to come and connect in with community, to meet other women, to be part of the women's circles that I hold. So I look forward to seeing you over there. Thank you so much. I am Shani with much love. If you want to connect with me on Instagram or Facebook, I will pop my links here so you can connect in. With much love. Have a beautiful evening.